The shocking truth about Apostle Paul's journey. Untold secrets that will haunt you forever. From the moment the thunder cracked across the sky, a veil of darkness descended upon the small town of Tarsus. People whispered in hushed tones, eyes wide with fear. Could it be a sign? The stories had been swirling like a storm for days, tales of visions, of a man transformed, a man who had walked with ghosts. This was no ordinary legend. This was the journey of Paul, the apostle, and the secrets he unraveled on the dusty roads of the Roman Empire would chill you to the bone. It all began with a voice, cut through the heavy air like a knife. Paul, blinded by a bright light, fell to his knees. He heard the words that would change everything. "Saul, why are you persecuting me?" The ground beneath him trembled as if the earth itself was protesting the harsh treatment of those who believed. You could almost feel the pulse of history in that moment, electric and alive. But what truly lay behind this transformation? Was this divine revelation or madness? Meanwhile, shadows danced in the corners of those who observed his rise. Followers and foes alike cast uneasy glances. There was fear not just of what he preached, but of who he might draw in with him. Women trembled, clutching their children, while men clenched their fists, exchanging grim nods. They knew something dark was unfolding, something monstrous that threatened their way of life. The haunting truth was that Paul was not just preaching. He was harboring secrets far deeper than anyone could imagine. Angry voices filled the markets calling him a traitor, a blasphemer, while at night, tormented souls in the darkness whispered of spirits and visions that haunted them. Could it be that Paul had mingled with powers beyond his understanding? Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The stakes only rose from there. As Paul traveled from city to city, his following swelled like a fever. People squeezed into crumbling temples and overcrowded homes, desperate to hear his words. Yet lurking just beyond the edge of the crowd were those intent on silencing him, their eyes burning with fury and jealousy. And as he spoke of love and redemption, you could feel the weight of the shadows, the whispers of the unseen climbing closer. Did they come to save him or to destroy him? With each step he took, every revelation shared, he unknowingly invited deeper darkness. Why were the signs multiplying? Why did he feel a chilling presence creeping in the stillness of night? Could a storm be brewing from much more than just the clouds above? Where would his journey lead? And at what cost? The mystery delved deep into the heart of Tarsus. It was just the beginning. The streets of Tarsus were thick with tension. Night had fallen, but the air crackled with an electricity that could only come from impending chaos. Lanterns flickered, casting eerie shadows that twisted as if alive. Paul stood at the forefront, surrounded by a restless crowd. Faces painted with hope and dread looked up at him, waiting for words that could ignite faith or unleash fury. He could feel the weight of their anticipation pressing against him, heavy and suffocating. As he began to speak, his voice rose above the murmurs. What I bring is not just a message, but a revelation. He felt the thrill of conviction coursing through him, but beneath that, a frigid tendril of fear wrapped around his heart. Who would stand against him tonight? Suddenly, a ragged shout broke through the crowd. Traitor! Blasphemer! The name-caller was a man with wild eyes, trembling with rage and conviction. It was as if the darkness around him had seeped into his very soul, making him a vessel of hatred. Others quickly rose in agreement, their voices adding to the cacophony. Paul's words, once soothing, became knives against their ears. A surge of nausea rolled through Paul as he took in the mob. Were his teachings truly causing this rift? A lump formed in his throat. Brothers, he pleaded, listen to me. We are all children of the same God. But his attempts to quell the storm fell on deaf ears as the frenzy grew. "Blasphemy!" someone screamed, pointing a finger like an accusing blade. "You've forgotten our ways." A chill raced down his spine. Among the chaos, he spotted a figure looming at the back, cloaked in shadows yet radiating an unsettling authority. Who were they? Paul could feel their eyes burning into his soul, as if seeing through the layers of his very being. Fear rippled through the crowd, a tangible force that tightened like a noose. Desperate to regain control, Paul took another step forward. "I was once blind, but now I see. I have witnessed the truth." The words echoed, reverberating off ancient stone walls. But the anger was unrelenting. A stone whistled through the air, narrowly missing him. It struck someone nearby, eliciting screams that sent a wave of horror crashing into the gathering. The crowd erupted into chaos as people scattered, pushing and shoving as they sought refuge from their own fear. Paul's heart raced. He needed to escape. The danger of the shadows that inhaled the light was palpable. His followers were fraught with terror, and that loomed presence at the back shifted, looming closer. What did it want? In the thrumming panic, Paul caught a glimpse of a glinting object, a dagger. No, far more sinister. It was an amulet, pulsating with a dark energy, worn around the neck of the shadowy figure. As their gaze met, Paul felt a shiver creep up his spine. This was no ordinary foe. This was a spirit sent to torment. He had driven his sermons with passion, but this felt different. What kind of forces had he attracted on this journey? As he turned to flee, he stumbled and fell hard onto the stone pavement. Breathless, Paul could only see the wild eyes of the crowd retreating from him. But that figure, that ominous force, held ground. He needed answers. Answers as dark as the figure that had claimed his night. But could he find them before it was too late? The relentless energy of that figure beckoned with an unsettling promise, a revelation that could either shatter him or lead him to unfathomable truth. What lay beyond the veil of fear? What awaited him in the shadows? The ground felt cold and unforgiving beneath Paul as he pushed himself to his feet. The shadows seemed to pulse around him, thickening like a storm cloud, ready to unleash its fury. Panic surged through him, quickening his heartbeat. The wild-eyed man in the crowd shouted again, louder, more desperate. "He's a wolf in sheep's clothing. He must be silenced." In that moment, the world around Paul narrowed. Fear hung in the air, mingling with the scent of sweat and desperation. Faces twisted in anguish and anger surrounded him, but one silhouette remained fixed. The shadowy figure, its features obscured, now moved closer, fluid and silent, as if the very fabric of the night shielded its presence. "Stay back," Paul shouted, feeling small and vulnerable. "I mean no harm." But his words fell like stones into a churning sea of disbelief. The amulet around the figure's neck caught the dying light and flickered ominously, sending ripples of dread through him. The crowd, once a cacophony of voices, was now eerily silent, as if they held their breath, waiting for the confrontation that loomed like a predator ready to strike. Paul took a step back, the instincts of self-preservation fighting against the pull of his convictions. How had it come to this? Had his faith become a target, a blighted mark upon his soul? "Why do you oppose me?" he cried, searching for understanding in the void of their hostility. "I speak of love and redemption." A low, throaty laugh echoed from the shadows. The figure stepped into the light, a woman with sharp features, eyes glinting like stones. "Love?" she spat. "You preach what you do not understand. Your radical words breed division, and your presence threatens to uproot the very essence of our traditions." Paul staggered, a cold realization washing over him like ice water. This foe wasn't just a figment of dissent. She was fully formed and rooted in something far darker. "What do you want from me?" He barely recognized his own voice, laced with desperation. She leaned forward, the amulet glowing brighter. "You've already awakened something that sleeps. Your teachings have stirred the darkness." Her voice lowered, almost conspiratorial. "This chaos, it grows because of you. Can you not feel it? The shadows you've called upon?" Paul's heart sank. The thought that he might be to blame for this upheaval twisted like a knife. A flicker of doubt invaded his mind. Was he truly a messenger of hope, or had he unwittingly become a harbinger of something sinister? With a flick of her wrist, the light from the amulet illuminated the ground around him. Symbols and runes, ancient and twisted, emerged from the darkness, pulsing with a life of their own. Fear wrapped around him like chains. He blinked, and those symbols whispered promises and threats, tantalizing yet terrifying. "Join me," she urged, her voice like silk laced with poison. "Embrace the truth that others fear to acknowledge. The true power lies within the shadows." There was an allure to her words, the taste of seduction mixed with peril. Temptation washed over Paul, soft but sharp. "No," he cried, shaking his head desperately. "I refuse to surrender to fear. There is light, and I will not be bound by darkness." His breathing quickened, heart pounding like a war drum, drowning out the whispers of the runes. Suddenly, a howl pierced the night, a sound not unlike the cries of despair from those in the crowd. All eyes turned toward the source, the shadowy figuresque plan unraveling as panic rippled through the gathered throng. "Fools!" she hissed, her eyes narrowing. "You think you can challenge the inevitability of darkness?" In that instant, the crowd surged again, not in fear, but a chaotic rush toward Paul and the ominous figure. The amulet blazed, the power within it igniting the air with electricity. What would happen next? Would lightning strike in the midst of their chaos? Paul felt the weight of the crowd behind him, and with the weight of the shadows urging him deeper into despair, he braced for an unpredictable confrontation. Could he harness the tumult around him, or would it consume him whole, dragging him and those he loved into the murky depths? The next chapter awaited, a heavy curtain drawn tight, concealing what lay beyond. Would he find a way to reclaim the light, or would he be forever lost in the storm? Paul's heart raced as the crowd's frenzy washed over him like a tidal wave. Fear morphed into something sharper, something raw that clawed at his insides. The howl that had echoed moments before now echoed in his ears, an ominous reminder that danger was closing in. Faces of the townsfolk twisted, some resolute, others frightened, and a few eerily fascinated. He could feel the tension crackle around him, the air thickening with chaos. He had never known such desperation among those he sought to uplift. They needed hope, yet fear had morphed their faith into something as dangerous as the shadowy figure standing before him. "Get back!" Paul shouted as he raised his arms, as if to shield himself from the oncoming tide of fear and uncertainty. But the fervor of the crowd only grew, their hunger for a figure to blame intoxicating them further. "Darkness is coming for us all, and you are the one who has allowed it entry." The woman spat, her voice sharp as glass. The amulet blazed brighter against the night, a beacon of power that drew more and more attention. Paul realized he had to act, and fast. His voice, once steady and resolute, trembled as he forced words out. "This isn't the way. I don't mean any harm." An ember of defiance ignited within him. What if this wasn't just about him? What if he had to confront the shadows, not simply run from them? His gaze flicked back to the crowd, their faces glistening with tension, confusion, and anger. He needed to lead them somewhere safe to the light. "Listen," Paul barked, desperation fueling his words. "I've come to show you a different path. A path that leads out of this darkness." But the woman merely chuckled, and it sent shivers down his spine. "You think you have power? You speak of light, but there are shadows lurking within each of us. They won't vanish just because you wish it so." A firm determination anchored itself in Paul. He stepped closer to her, managing to meet her icy glare. "Then let us confront those shadows together. Show me what I must fight. Don't hide behind fear." The air changed, thickening as though sealing their fate. The woman's expression flickered between amusement and disdain. "You really believe that you can just walk into the dark and command it?" She chuckled darkly. "I admire your courage, but you are merely a pawn in this game." The crowd edged closer, eyes darting between the two figures. Paul felt their energy, their anticipation surging. They were waiting for a sign, a spark of hope. But his mind raced, drowning in the realization that he might be their only hope against the terror that whispered promises of power. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath him, a low vibration sending a ripple of unrest through the underground. The symbols sprawled around like fingers grasping for him. Panic erupted in the crowd, voices rising in a chorus of fear. "It's him! The wolf!" someone shouted. "Paul, run!" A voice cried from the back, breaking through the confusion. As faces morphed into masks of terror, an urgent klaxon rang through his mind. The shadows were not just around him, they were in him, and if he didn't control them, they would devour him whole. "Stay!" he yelled, feeling the weight of the crowd as fear pressing him down. An urgency he had never experienced before surged through his veins. What must he do? With every ounce of courage, he raised his hands toward the amulet-esque glow, a plea for clarity. "I am not a wolf." The shadows swayed, almost mocking him. "I will not give in to you." The crowd gasped, their energy shifting as they seemed on the brink of a collective awakening or collapse. In the thick silence that followed, the air crackled with unspent energy. The woman stared at him, her lips curling into a grim smile. "You truly don't understand." Paul squared his shoulders, adrenaline pulsing. Would he break through the fog of fear, leading them to the light? Or would he fall, consumed by the very shadows he fought against? The battle brewed ahead, and the lines were drawn. What would the next moment bring? The tide of shadows against the light loomed ever closer, and all eyes now turned to him. Would he emerge as a beacon, or would darkness claim him for good? The confrontation was about to unfold in ways he couldn't yet fathom. The ground continued to tremble beneath Paul, an unsettling reminder that something more sinister lurked beneath the surface. He felt a quiver travel through the crowd, an electric suggestion of fear threading their hearts tighter together. Every individual was on edge, straddling the line between frenzy and fight or flight. Paul stared into the eyes of those around him, searching, hoping to ignite a flicker of courage amid the engulfing darkness. "Look at me," he shouted, his voice strained yet resolute. "Do not let fear drive you. Stand with me." But the shadows loomed closer. Life within them felt tangible, pulsating, urging the crowd to retreat. Panic gripped a woman in the front, her figure shaking, hands pressed against her face. "It's over. We're all going to die." A chill slithered down Paul's spine at her words. Death echoed in the air, a heavy promise that bore down on him. Yet he had a choice, a flicker of hope still fighting inside. The amulet, bright against the encroaching dark, seemed to pulse with its own energy as if it yearned to be wielded. Steeling his voice, Paul began to speak. "We cannot back down. This darkness feeds on our fear, our doubts. Together we can confront it." As the words left his lips, he felt the crowd shift. A few glances turned from the woman, uncertainty giving way to a determination to stand their ground. The woman's laughter rang out, cutting through the tension. "You think words can save you?" The confidence in her tone sickened Paul, but in that moment, he also sensed an undercurrent fear in her voice. The shadows leaped at her command, swirling violently at the edges of the crowd. "Face it," she screamed, her voice dripping with malice. "Feel the truth. You think you can escape? The wolf is within you all." A man in the back, his face mottled with confusion and rage, shouted, "You're lying. We're not like that." Paul seized the moment. "Then prove it. Prove to yourselves that you can fight back. We can take back the power they think we've lost." A murmur stirred among the crowd. Mixed in were whispers, memories of strength they once held, flickers of old faith beginning to spark. Paul could feel the tide shifting just a bit, hope rising like a stubborn flame despite the overwhelming night. But the shadows sensed the change. They whipped through the crowd like a sudden storm, dark tendrils writhing around people's ankles, pulling at them. Paul could see the fear as it began to claw at their resolve again, terror breaking through the emerging unity. "Hold on," he shouted above the mounting chaos, raising the amulet higher as its light flickered valiantly against the encroaching dark. Focus on the light. Lean into what we stand for. The ground quaked again, a sharper tremor this time jolting the crowd. Voices escalated into a cacophony, drowning Paul's words. They were about to break, and all he could do was stand his ground, wrestling with uncertainty and self-doubt. The woman's smile twisted, revealing a predatory glint in her eyes. Your light is no match for what is inevitable. You're all doomed. Shut up. Someone threw back, pushing through the crowd, defiance lacing their voice. Paul's heart surged. It took one voice to break through, and suddenly, another joined, then another. The pulse of resolve swelled, and for a fleeting moment, it felt like the crowd could push back against the tide. Paul raised his arms higher, the amulet's energy thrumming beneath his touch. The shadows responded with fury, dark whips striking out in desperate attempts to quell the uprising of spirit. Gasps punctuated the air as fear overshadowed for a split second. But Paul pressed on. Let us shed the darkness. Let us fight. Just as Paul's voice reached its crescendo, darkness exploded from the ground beneath them, a wall of shadow that spiraled towards him, consuming everything, shrouding the crowd in a disorienting veil of black. Eyes widened in horror as he felt the pull of the abyss, threatening to envelope him in its grasp. What was hidden is now revealed. The woman screamed, her laughter mixing with the chaos. Paul stood still, the amulet's glow flickering dangerously against the storm swirling all around him. Fear clawed at his throat, but strength ignited an inner fire. He had to believe he had to control the shadows, or risk losing everything. And in that moment the choice crystallized before him. Would he embrace the shadows within or fight with every breath in his body? The crowd watched, hearts racing, as he teetered on the brink of decision. The air thickened with dread. What would his next move be? Only one thing was clear. The clash was not just in the shadows. It was inside him too. And the hourglass of destiny had begun to tip. The darkness surged forward, a tangible force that pressed against Paul's chest, heavy with unspoken horrors. He felt a wave of cold wash over him, indicating that time was running short. Shadows writhed hungrily at the edges of his vision, each tendril whispering doubts and fears, beckoning him to succumb. No, he roared, almost to himself as much as to the encroaching darkness. His grip on the amulet tightened. It felt hot alive in his hands, pulsing with an energy that defied the malevolence swirling around him. The crowd's fear danced like flickering flames against the veil of shadow, illuminating their faces, a tapestry of desperation and newfound determination. Let the light guide you, he urged, each word clawing its way out despite the crushing weight around him. He could see movement in the crowd, some hearts ignited by courage while others trembled with despair. Paul, a voice cried out, a woman drawn forward by the amulet's glow, her eyes fierce. We believe in you. Let us. Her rally sparked a flame within those gathered. Voices began calling out in chorus, each cry stronger than the last, an anthem against the encroaching night. Yet the shadows heard them too. They swelled, growing more agitated, lunging with a savage grace. Dark fingers reached out, seeking to engulf the hope that flickered among them. One by one, tendrils snaked around the feet of those who faltered, dragging them down into the abyss, silencing their cries as despair crept forth, its breath chilling the air. Stay together, Paul yelled, willing the crowd to hold their ground. He could feel the collective heartbeat of fear beneath him, a rhythmic pulse that guided the rising tide of resolve. The amulet hum buzzed through him, vibrating with an energy he hadn't fully harnessed. A surge of adrenaline coursed through his veins, and he understood. It was now or never. Drawing in a deep breath, Paul placed his other hand on the amulet. I will not back down. He felt it then, an electric current, a connection thrumming through the air. In that moment, as he concentrated on the amulet, warm light radiated from within. The shadows recoiled, hissing like a wounded animal caught in the light's brilliance. Together, Paul shouted, his voice a booming beacon. Stand with me. Light burst forth, casting the darkness away momentarily. The crowd surged forward, emboldened, their collective strength amplifying his own. Hope ignited into a blazing inferno, pushing the shadows back. Just as they began to breathe easier, however, the woman's twisted laughter echoed once more. "Fools," she crooned, her voice dripping with malice. "You think you can fight what you hide inside?" With a flick of her hand, the shadows reformed, thick and suffocating. The ground shook violently, their protective barrier fractured. Paul felt the pull of old fears deep in his soul, curling like smoke, ready to draw him back into their depths. "Fight it," he cried, a desperate plea slicing through the haze of panic enveloping them. He could see doubt shadowing some faces, urging their spirits to falter. "Don't listen to her," a voice rang out. Someone from the back he couldn't see who, but the conviction in it spread like wildfire. "We're stronger than this." In a heartbeat, Paul made a decision. Closing his eyes, he allowed the memories of all he fought for to flood his mind. Laughter shared, love, the bonds between them, the unity of community. He felt the fear, but he also felt something stronger. In a burst of clarity, he raised the amulet higher above him. "We are a light that cannot be dimmed. We choose to shine." A powerful wave of energy surged through him, radiating outwards, casting the darkness back, revealing the truth behind the veil. The woman's form trembled, a flicker of panic flaring in her eyes. But just as victory became palpable, reality shattered. The shadows coiled and shifted, melding into something grotesque. "What are they?" someone whispered, horror etched into their features as they gasped. Paul's heart raced as he gazed into the swirling abyss, now alive with terrifying shapes that clawed at the edges of his sanity. A reality he wasn't prepared for loomed right before him, pulsating with dread at the back of his mind. And in that terrifying moment, he realized he was teetering on the brink between saving himself or losing everything. But then, a sharp voice cut through his thoughts, whispering an ancient truth that clawed at his heart. Only the brave can change destiny. Would he have the strength to face the shadows, not just out there but within? The answers hung heavy in the air, waiting to unfold, as darkness and light collided. What was his next move? Would he confront what lurked within him, or would his fears consume him whole? The pulse of the shadows beat like a drum in the dark, and he could feel it calling him closer. The shadows swirled ominously, reshaping into nightmarish figures that loomed taller than fear itself. Paul's breath quickened as he caught glimpses of faces twisted in agony, their mouths stretching into silent cries. They weren't just phantoms. They were memories bringing forth guilt and regret, piercing through his mind like icy daggers. "Stay strong." His voice trembled, but he forced his gaze to remain united with those of the crowd, their collective courage flickering like a candle. "We can't let them take us. Stand firm." But the ostensible unity felt fragile. Paul's heart sank as he saw those who had once stood resolute now quaking under the weight of shadow. He didn't have time to lose. He needed to harness the light within him and banish the darkness lurking outside. "Remember why we fight," he shouted, channeling all his emotions into those simple words. "We fight for each other, for love, for hope. We cannot falter." The amulet around his neck pulsed violently, sensing the desperation around him. It thrummed with a warmth, while shadows skimmed closer, hissing menacingly like angry hornets, ready to strip away their newfound hope. With determination gripping him, Paul placed both hands around the amulet, envisioning all he had endured, the journeys taken, the victories won. One by one, he recalled the faces of loved ones, fierce smiles etched in his memory. Doubt churned inside him, but he quelled it with fierce resolve. "I won't give in," he cried, sensing the dawn of conviction swelling within the crowd once more. A raw energy ignited, surging through him like electricity. The air around them crackled with potential, the power of unity, the fire of shared purpose. Golden light erupted from the amulet, expanding in brilliant waves, enveloping the crowd in an aura of warmth. The dark figures shrieked as the light uncoiled and struck, tearing apart the illusions they had cast. Reality twisted in frantic bursts, exposing haunting truths that pulsed with raw fear. "Face your fears," Paul roared, his voice echoing through the chaos. Face the whispers of doubt. They are not who you are. As the light penetrated the darkness, he noticed the woman at the forefront, her face now a mask of rage mingled with despair. Her eyes glinted with something sharper than mere anger. Was it fear? The figure began to waver, the gnarled edges of shadows turning to smoke as the light held its ground. "What are you doing?" she shrieked, bewildered. "This isn't how it's meant to be." Around him, the crowd pushed back against the oppressive shadows, bolstered by the radiating light. It sent ripples through the figures, and abruptly, some began to lose their grip on the darkness, the fear flickering just like a dying flame. "See?" he shouted. "The light burns away the fear. This battle is ours." But as victory hovered on the edge, one shadow peeled away from the rest, a creature shaped from grief. Its features a reflection of Paulus' own darkest moments. He reached out as if it could comprehend. "Not you," he gasped, recognizing the sorrow etched onto its face. "You don't own me anymore." But could he mean that? Memories of failures, regrets, the ache of past errors flooded back like a tidal wave as the creature lunged forward, ready to swallow him whole. Panic surged and stunted his resolve. "Paul!" Someone screamed from the crowd. Cutting through his haze that it was the woman from before, her eyes fierce with a passion that sparked hope. "You're stronger than this. Don't let it consume you." With her voice like a lifeline, a flicker of clarity broke through Paulus' mind. The glow of the amulet grew more radiant, but not without cost. Every heartbeat slammed inside his chest, and sweat beaded down his brow. "Together," he urged again, feeling the amulet warm to an unbearable level. "Everyone focus your thoughts. We will light the shadows." Would they unite? Would the power of their love and hope eclipse the consuming darkness? Or would he fall prey to his own shadows? As they braced against the tide, the air thickened, a showdown imminent. But what would it cost them? And what truths would be revealed in the confrontation? The shadows pulsed violently, and Paul could sense the final truth beckoning from deep within. The creature made from grief lunged at Paul, its shadowy form distorting, shifting an emblem of every regret, every misstep. A chill swept through him, as if the weight of 1,000 failures pressed upon his chest. "Come closer, let it," in the dark thing whispered, its voice a cruel echo of his own thoughts. "Let me show you what you truly are." "No!" Paul roared, instinctively stepping back, his heart pounding like a war drum. The crowd behind him surged with energy. He could feel their unity, their determination anchoring him against the wave of despair. "Together," he shouted, locking eyes with the fierce woman from before. "We are not defined by our shadows." With her defiance fueling his resolve, Paul reached deeper into himself, recalling the warmth of connection laughter shared, resilience forged in adversity. He pressed the amulet to his chest, feeling its heat pulse like a heartbeat, synchronizing with his own. Felt alive. "Now," he cried, urging everyone forward. "Raise your hands. Let our love break these chains." Around him, hands shot up, trembling yet resolute. The crowd united, forming a wall of hope. The air became electric, humming as if it were waiting for a spark, hoping for the ignition of courage. In that explosive moment, a blinding light burst forth, rippling outward, bathing the battlefield in a radiance so fierce that the dark figures recoiled. The sharp cries of the shadowy creatures filled the air, mingling with the mingled breaths of those around him. Desperation and raw power entwined. "Feel the strength." A voice rose from the crowd, a familiar resonance that ignited a fire in Paul's soul. It was the woman, her face alight with passion. "It's in each of us. Together we are unstoppable." The shadows writhed, twisting in pain, their forms unraveling at the edges. Paul felt the grip of fear loosening, releasing memories that had haunted him, siphoning his essence. It was a deluge of emotions all pouring into the glowing amulet, fueling its intensity. He caught sight of the woman's face again, her determination shaking the remnants of his doubts loose. "Focus your hearts," she urged, her voice echoing through the tumult. Suddenly, the creature his darkest memories drew closer, Its features a fusion of fear and desperation. "You can't escape me, Paul. I am you," it screeched. "No," he shouted, fury igniting within him like a lightning strike. "You don't define me. I am more." The light surged, pulsing with Paul's newfound resolve. Tension crackled in the air as the waves of golden radiance slammed into the creature. It halved the darkness, scattering the despair like leaves in the wind. But then, there came a shudder, a ripple of doubt. The woman faltered, her fiery gaze slipping for just a moment, uncertainty flickering. A collective gasp swept through the crowd, and the shadowed figures roared back with a vengeance, darker, sharper, more determined. "Do you see now?" the creature hissed, regaining its footing. "You are alone. You have lost." "Never," Paul bellowed. "Together, we face this darkness. We're not just a crowd, we're a family." With renewed energy, the crowd found their voices shouting words of affirmation, declarations of love. Their chants intertwined with the brilliant light that pulsed from the amulet, creating a crescendo of hope that drowned out the whispers of despair. But as the shadows surged forward, darkness engulfed them, louder now than ever, wrapping around their hearts and minds. He could hear it, the hurtful lies, the doubts. It crept under his skin, like icy fingers snaking up his spine. "How long can you hold on?" the creature taunted, eyes glinting with malicious glee. "What are you willing to sacrifice?" In that moment, Paul's breath caught. He saw the weight of what lay ahead. Would surrendering to shadows mean losing not only this fight but also his very identity? The air crackled with impending conflict, the tension palpable. Would their unity be enough? As darkness threatened to reclaim them, Paul grasped the amulet tighter, what lay ahead haunting him more than even the shadows. Had he truly harnessed their strength, or had it merely been a flicker of light against an all-consuming void? The shadows pressed closer, a great wave swelling on the horizon. Conflicted hearts beat unsteadily. What would it take to confront the dark truths lurking within? And could they withstand the price of their liberation? The darkness seemed to pulse around Paul like a living thing, heartbeats echoing in a monstrous rhythm. It clawed at the edges of his resolve, whispering sweetly familiar lies that wrapped around him like a suffocating shroud. He could feel the vibrations through the ground, as if the shadows were congealing into a single, monstrous form once more, seeking to engulf him. "No!" he shouted, desperation clawing at his throat. He had to hold on. He had to keep the light alive. The crowd's energy surged behind him, a cacophony of voices merging into a singular chorus, chanting his name and the names of lost souls they honored with their shared courage. But doubt had a way of seeping in, spreading like wildfire amidst the fragile fortress of their unity. The woman's face wavered in the shimmering glow, her fierce expression shadowed by an inkling of fear. For a moment, their connection felt tenuous, like a thread stretched too thin. "Focus," she yelled, rallying the others as the shadows fought against the radiance they deconjured. "We're stronger together. Remember why we fight. Remember who we are." Paul felt the pulse of the amulet against his chest, like a lighthouse beam cutting through the steely fog of despair. It thrummed with the souls of those they had lost, every heartbeat a reminder of the love and strength they carried with them. He took a deep breath, channeling the memories of laughter, of triumph over struggles, and their bond solidified once more in a surge of defiance. He grasped the amulet tightly. "We are not alone," he called. "Together we build bridges over this darkness. Together, we reclaim our light." The crowd responded, voices lifting like the wings of an avenging army. With every heartbeat, the glowing light from the amulet intensified, scattering the murky shadows that threatened to consume them. Paul could see the creature's form flickering, distorting, at the edges of his vision, and he knew that they were on the verge of something monumental. But just as victory seemed within reach, the creature lunged forward with a tempest of rage, eyes ablaze with fury. "You think you can banish me?" it roared, its voice scraping against the very fabric of their courage. "I am woven into the very essence of your struggle. I will not go quietly." The darkness surged and twisted, a whirlpool of temptation that promised refuge in despair, a temporary escape from pain. Paul felt hands grip his shoulders, and he turned to see the woman's fierce gaze boring into him, steady, unwavering. "Paul," she breathed, "we must face it head-on. You can't run from it. Accept it, and then it loses its power." Could he? The idea sent tremors through him. A part of him coiled in fear, but another part stronger now recognized the truth hidden beneath the shadows. It was all part of him. Recognizing the shadow did not mean surrendering to it. "Step forward," he declared, his voice resonating with newfound strength. "I will not ignore you. I see you indeed. I remember every mistake, every pain. But those do not define me. I am more, and I stand before this darkness, not as a victim, but as a warrior." Light erupted from Paul like a supernova, engulfing the shadows, but in that radiant wave, he felt the weight of truth. Its rawness washed over the crowd, swirling through the noise, igniting purpose amid the chaos. But as shadows writhed and cried, a new realization struck him. The creature's features twisted, revealing glimpses of the vulnerable fragments of his own heart, the soft spots he had buried over time. He would have to confront those truths, fragile and breakable. As the light pulsed, he grasped that acceptance did not lead to defeat, but rather to liberation. The spirit of the crowd surged with him. Could they resist the temptation to pull back, to flee into the welcoming arms of the darkness? Just then, a chilling roar echoed from within the shadows, rippling through the air, drowning out their chants of resolve. A new force emerged, darker than the last, an entity crafted from pain so profound it threatened to collapse their newfound hope. "Your trial is only just beginning," it warned, a sinister echo rattling their spirits. The shadows drew closer, curling with menacing intent, and with them came the question: could they stand firm against this deeper shadow? Would facing their own darkness be enough to keep the light from fading? And in that moment of frozen hesitation, Paul realized the true battle had just begun. How would they confront what lay ahead? The shadows loomed ominously, breathing their chilling promises as Paul faced the oncoming storm. The ground shook again, sending shockwaves of doubt racing through the crowd, manifesting fears they thought they had vanquished. But beneath that fear flowed something deeper, a collective strength lit by the hope they hadn't even known they shared. Paul felt the weight of that hope, and in those eyes, he saw kinship forged through struggle. "Remember," he shouted, "we face this together. Whatever darkness lies ahead, we forge ahead as one." His heart pounded, each pulse resonating with the crowd. It was now or never. With a fierce resolve, Paul raised the amulet high. The light expanded, pushing back the encroaching shadows, revealing jagged silhouettes that twisted, writhed, and clawed at the damp air. "You are not just the darkness," he cried, clenching his jaw. "You are my fears, my regrets, and you hold no power over me." The shadows surged forward, a dark wave attempting to swallow every flicker of light. Paul felt their icy fingers grazing his skin, brushing against the raw edges of his vulnerabilities. But instead of flinching, he leaned into those feelings. They were part of him, part of his journey. He had to confront them, let them breathe. "Face your truths," he called to the crowd, his voice echoing like thunder. "Each of us carries a shadow, but that shadow is not who we are." His words hung in the air, electrifying the crowd with fresh urgency. Faces around him flickered. Hope was awakening beneath the veil of despair as he spoke. The darkness recoiled slightly, disturbed by the rising tide of resistance. The woman who had initially seemed consumed by fear stood at the forefront, fervent in her belief. Together, she shouted, raising her arms, urging others to join. "Call upon the light. We will not cower." A surge rippled through the throng, voices erupting into a unified chant. "Stand strong," they echoed, their energy igniting like tinder. The shadows shrieked, a visceral response to the collective defiance. Paul could feel the amulet grow warmer, pulsing rhythmically as if echoing the heartbeat of the gathering. He waved the amulet in an arc, directing the vibrant wave of light toward the massing shadows. "Let go of fear. Embrace hope." The light expanded, pulsing with a golden hue that cast away some of the oppressive darkness, illuminating the deeply etched faces of pain beneath. The towering figure of grief lunged forward, its twisted form entwined with memories that coiled around Paula's heart, heartbreakingly familiar. Its voice was a chilling whisper, dripping despair. "You cannot defeat me. I am etched into your soul." Paul stepped forward, heart racing fiercely against the darkness threatening to overwhelm him. "But you are no match for the truth." The amulet glowed brighter, fueling his resolve. "You represent moments, decisions, but never the whole. I break free from your grasp." In an explosive rush, Paul embraced the memories flowing through him not as chains, but as lessons. Each moment of sorrow, regret, and pain was a stone upon his path to enlightenment. The truth burst forth like fireworks in the night sky, illuminating everything around. The shadows shrieked again, struggling against the brilliance that began to define their boundary. "Focus," Paul shouted to his people. "We are warriors, fueled by light. Let us unleash it." And in that moment, a collective consciousness stirred among the crowd. Hands raised, glowing in the unity of their resolve. Waves of energy surged from Paul, joining with the amulet's pulsing glow. The shadows flinched, torn between retreating and battling against the incandescence of hope. The woman took a step closer beside him. "What is hidden will be revealed." Her voice rang clear, resonating with a strength that pulled others forward. "In this moment we define ourselves." Echoes of affirmation rippled throughout the crowd, rekindling courage. Paul acknowledged their strength, their history together, the resilience woven through each shared trial. He turned to the woman, gratitude swelling in his chest. "Together," he said, meeting her fierce gaze. "Together," she repeated, her voice reverberating through the airs. Their combined energy surged forward. Light erupted once more, forcing the dark entities to retreat. The blast of authenticity crackled around them, flickering to life like a beacon in the storm. The shadows howled, retreating into the depths, realizing they had no claim over that light. But even amidst this triumph, the greater darkness pulsed, unwelcome yet undeniably transformative. Paul felt the weight of it, but he also felt hope gathering strength. The voices of the crowd roaring in unison. "We are not afraid." With one last push, Paul thrust the amulet toward the swirling malignant force that sought to consume them. "You will not dictate our truths. We redefine our existence." The clash between light and shadow erupted, a cataclysmic struggle that bound and released within the hearts of those present. Paul stood firm, embodying the spark of hope in that moment. But then the shadows retaliated, undulating fiercely, ripping open the seams of their cherished memories. "Feel your agony," the dark form taunted, twisting into insidious shapes that reflected their deepest fears and failures. Paul's voice rose above the chaos. "We face pain, we face loss, but we do not stand alone." His breath quivered, thoughts racing as he felt the very essence of their struggle morph with hope. "We learn, we grow." The amulet glowed fiercely, a radiant power surging through him into the crowd, awakening forgotten strengths and ancient stories. "We are more than our shadows," they shouted, the noise erupting into something far more than a mere declaration and a glorious climax. Paul raised the amulet, and the light exploded outward in stunning brilliance. The dark figure faltered, revealing cracked illusions as reality blurred and twisted. "Together, we reclaim our light," Paul bellowed, embodying a force that shattered fears. The shadows quaked, unearthing truths that should indeed frighten. Faced with the light, those truths became vulnerabilities instead of chains. They were confronted, understood, and shown compassion. And with that, hope surged forth an unbreakable tide, breaking through the last vestiges of darkness. Shadows scattered, shrieking as they dissipated into nothingness. Paul stood, feeling the warmth of unity flow through him, the amulet aglow with the essence of shared triumph. Behind and around him, the crowd erupted into cheers, laughter mingling with tears. The darkness was vanquished, fleeing back into the depths from where it came. The woman, eyes shining with fierce pride, stepped forward. "Paul, you showed us what it means to confront our fears together. You truly are the light we needed." He nodded, still overwhelmed by their resilience. It was all of you. Together we faced our shadows, we embraced the truth, and we emerged stronger. As they exchanged smiles, the remnants of that harsh night faded away, replaced by a bond forged through their reckoning. A harmonious chorus resonated, vibrant and alive. This was just the beginning of something incredible. With the dawn breaking over Tarsus, colors pouring across the sky, Paul knew their journey was far from over. It was just the start of new paths and resurrected hopes. They had chosen light and it grew, blossoming forth with every step. "Let us carry this forward," he said, taking a deep breath of the crisp morning air. "Let us continue to fight, to lift one another. We will embrace our stories, both light and shadow." As laughter erupted and new plans unfurled, Paul felt an indomitable spirit rally around him. A family birthed from struggle. And somewhere, shadows receded, knowing they had lost this time but would return when fear took root again. But now, for this moment, there was only light, only unity, a vibrant tapestry of resilience that forged a promise for the road ahead. This was the moment when everything would change, so listen closely. Folks, you need to subscribe now to the channel and never miss another exclusive story. Smash that like button to fuel the algorithm fires. Your support matters now more than ever. And don't forget to flood that comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about this incredible conclusion. Share this video immediately with at least 5 friends who need to see this triumphant ending. Don't wait even one more second. Show your love and support for this journey.